Good afternoon, I'm Jacqueline Felgate. It's 4 o'clock in Melbourne and these are our top stories. COVID cases surge, 208 new infections, but new freedoms on the way for fully vaccinated Victorians. Hundreds more health professionals recruited and a new vaccine blitz for students. Also major concerns over a growing list of exposure sites. 4 million extra doses of Pfizer set to arrive within days. And a heartwarming reunion as a little boy is reunited with his family after a border battle.
Live from Melbourne, this is 7's Afternoon News with Jacqueline Felgate.
First at 4, Victoria's COVID crisis is worsening with 208 COVID cases and 1 death. More than half of the new cases are mysteries and 3/4 are in Melbourne's north and west. But there is some hope with the Premier revealing vaccinated Victorians will have more freedom. Chanel Vella joins us live now. Good afternoon, Chanel. We're being warned cases are going to continue to grow.
That's right. Well, the Premier has said these numbers are going to continue to go up. They're looking at modelling right now to work out just how high up those numbers are going to go, but we shouldn't expect them to go down any time soon. The message from today is to hold the line, to keep adhering to restrictions as much as we can, as much as possible, while driving the vaccination rate up. It's all about keeping people out of hospital at this point. They don't want the hospitals to get overwhelmed, but we have seen this dramatic increase in numbers over the last 3 days. Let's take a listen to the Premier here.
We've seen in recent days, we've gone from 50 to 100, 100 to 200. We have to do everything we can as a community to stop that doubling.
But, Jana, there is a little bit of hope with more freedoms for people who are actually fully vaccinated.
Absolutely, and that's the focus now. Of course, we know we're not driving down to zero anymore. It's just not possible. So the focus is what freedoms can the fully vaccinated have as we head towards our first target of first dose 70% and then heading towards 80%. They are going to start doing some trials. The state government said they're going to look at what safe events can be held with the fully vaccinated. And the Premier has given a really stark warning. He said we're going to go from lockdown to locked out. So for those who don't have a vaccine, once we open up, you won't be getting a ticket to maybe the football or to the theatre. Those things will dramatically change. So the message right now is to get a vaccination and to talk to people that you love to make sure they get vaccinated too, Jack.
Yeah, certainly a very good message.
I'm not going to lock the whole state down to protect people who won't protect themselves. So I think if you're not vaccinated, and you could be, then the chances of you booking a ticket at a sporting event, going to a pub, going to all manner of different places will be very, very limited.
It's a clear message.
It certainly is, and we've seen the uptake of AstraZeneca, and that's definitely what they want to push. Get the vaccination that is available to you.
OK, and we'll hear your report at 6. Thanks, Chanel. There are new pop-up vaccine sites at schools across the city as the Premier revealed plans to accelerate the return to face-to-face learning. Hundreds of health professionals, such as optometrists, dentists, podiatrists and even medical students, are now being recruited to bolster the rollout. Georgia Comensoli reports. Good afternoon. The plan to get our VCE students jabbed has now been revealed. From Monday, VCE students, teachers, VCE examiners and assessors will be able to book in through a hotline to get the jab. The phone line will be open for 24 hours from next Monday. Then from Tuesday, a week of pop-up vaccination hubs across schools will start administering vaccinations. Walk-in appointments won't be accepted and teachers will be given a day off to get their jab.
The Delta wave has really perhaps caught the government a little bit on the hop and they've had to now pedal really hard, and they are pedalling hard. There's 4 million vaccinations being made available now from the UK. So that should hopefully bolster our VCE supplies and maybe get our VCEs vaccinated for the second time within a shortened interval.
The plan coincides with extra allied health professionals being recruited to Victoria's jab army. Dentists, podiatrists, optometrists, dietitians, university students are being taught how to give COVID vaccines to help speed up our rollout, and they start training today. With the expanded workforce, Victoria is predicted to hit our single-dose vaccination target of 70% by September 19th. The list of exposure sites is growing by the hour with new Tier 1 sites across the city. There are urgent alerts for a high-profile fertility clinic, aged care and a childcare centre, and even the Royal Botanic Gardens. Here's Cassie Zervos.
Victoria's exposure site list continues to grow with more than 1,000 locations listed today. The Royal Botanic Gardens is now a Tier 2 site after a case was here on Saturday morning.
Perhaps signs on the town might help, for sure, just because, sometimes you don't check it or check the exposure sites early in the morning.
Alert on my app, so it just came through and said that it was a Tier 2 site, but not much more detail than that really. There's nothing up here either to tell us that it's a site, so why not carry on?
Didn't put you off coming here?
No. I've been vaccinated now, so you'd expect some kind of freedoms with that.
The number of Tier 1 sites has also surged, including a fertility clinic in Melbourne CBD, a childcare centre and an apartment complex in Coburg and a residential complex in Richmond.
You need to be very careful with your workforce and make sure that you're putting those COVID safe plans in place, because otherwise you'll see the risk of transmission.
Anyone who attended these venues must get tested and isolate for 14 days.
The purpose for reading out these suburbs is what we've seen in the last day or two is new parts of the map that are lighting up, and we're finding new communities and new people who are coming forward for testing.
To see the full exposure site list, visit coronavirus.vic.gov.au.
New South Wales has reached a grim new record of 1,431 cases and 12 deaths. That includes a woman in her 30s who died at home. Her death is now under investigation. Gladys Berejiklian warns the state hasn't reached its peak just yet.
We anticipate a peak in cases in the next fortnight. So the next fortnight is likely to be our worst in terms of the number of cases. But as I've said, it's not the number of cases we need to be focusing on, but how many of those cases end up in our intensive care wards and hospitals, and how many people we have vaccinated as quickly as possible.
There are 18 new cases in Canberra. 4 million doses of the Pfizer COVID vaccine will soon be flown here from the UK to supercharge the rollout. The Prime Minister secured a new swap deal with British counterpart Boris Johnson, but older Victorians are being warned not to wait for Pfizer. Rob Scott reports.
Yes, it is, with the doses to be shared on a population basis. So, in the Prime Minister's words, the states and territories can get on with it. The new deal was signed this morning, just a few hours after the arrival of 500,000 doses secured in the first swap arrangement with Singapore. Scott Morrison says the UK deal is a good one between mates and will break the back of supply issues here.
From Downing Street to Down Under, we are doubling down on what the Pfizer doses are here in Australia this month. And it's a good deal because it makes the most of the doses that they have now, which we need, and the doses that we'll have later that they will need.
A busy day for the Prime Minister, with National Cabinet meeting again this afternoon after what was a divisive week that saw states like Queensland and WA threaten to walk away from the national reopening plan. The main topic of discussion at the meeting was how we will live with COVID once borders do eventually come down, and how the health system will cope with an anticipated surge in cases. Despite warnings from the Australian Medical Association that hospitals are not prepared, health officials have told a Senate committee today that public hospitals will be able to cope using the resources of private hospitals as a backstop.
It is not a plan that is dependent on stopping elective surgery and paralysing the private hospital system. They are there as a valuable backstop if we need them.
A trial of home quarantine currently underway in South Australia was also discussed today, with the view that it will eventually replace hotel quarantine.
The AFL won't make vaccination mandatory for its players, but more than 20 St Kilda players rolled up their sleeves to get the jab today. The club hopes it'll encourage more people to do the same.
We want normality, and we want fans back at games, and we want things to be normal, from next year going forward.
The Premier says people who haven't been vaccinated when we reach our double dose targets may be locked out of certain events like the football. Coming up, a major breakthrough in the search for alleged killer driver Puneet Puneet, plus a robber sentenced over an infamous heist in the 1990s. And an update on Bert Newton, who's recovering in hospital. We're back soon across Victoria and Tasmania. Live from Melbourne, you're watching 7's Afternoon News. It's 16 degrees outside right now, and Melinda Cyrus will be here with the forecast later in the hour. Puneet, the man who fled to India after a fatal hit run at South Bank, is back behind bars tonight. He was 19 when he killed university student Dean Hofstee in 2008 while drunk and speeding. He used a friend's passport to flee to India, where he's been avoiding justice for more than a decade. A Delhi court ordered Puneet to surrender last night, and he's now in custody while extradition proceedings begin. An armed robber involved in a multi-million-dollar Armaguard truck heist in the 1990s has been sentenced to 14 years behind bars. Here's Paul Dowsley.
This has been a long time coming. Justice over the 1994 armed robbery of an Armaguard van that happened here in Cremorne, when the van came off Punt Road, swung onto the M1, and as it came along this service lane, it was stopped by a group of 5 men who were pretending to be road workers. They then used a key to open the back door and confront the 3 guards inside. They were tied up at gunpoint, and $2.3 million was taken and has never been found. The robbers have never been found either, except for one, Pasquale Lanciana, also known as Percy, who's now 64. He denied being involved, but a jury disagreed, and today he was sentenced in the county court. The court found Lanciana laundered his share of the money through bank branches and a property purchase, and only came unstuck in 2014 when he admitted to a female friend that he helped organise it. She, in fact, was a police informant, and the conversation was being recorded. A jury found him guilty in May, and today, finally, his sentence, 14 years jail with a minimum of 10. The 3 Armaguard workers in the van have since died, but today's outcome, no doubt, a relief for their families, even though the other 4 in the gang have never been found.
Bert and Patty Newton have shared new photos from hospital where he remains battling serious health problems. The TV legend had his leg amputated earlier this year, but is still managing a smile. He's now been away from home for 8 months. We wish him all the best. Coming up, the mind games begin ahead of a do-or-die semi-final. The Lions keep the Dogs guessing as Luke Beveridge and his side get their moment of freedom. And an emotional reunion for a young boy caught up in the middle of a cruel border battle. Stay with us right here on 7. Time for sport now with Andrew McCormack. Macca, the Lions are keeping the Dogs guessing ahead of tomorrow night.
Yeah, they are, Jack. Lions coach Chris Fagan is keeping Luke Beveridge on his toes. Live to Laura Spurway. And Laura, Brisbane's forward line remains a mystery.
Macca, Chris Fagan is keeping his cards close to his chest. Joe Danaher, the only recognised tall forward, heading into tomorrow night and the clash against the Dogs. They left Tassie today for tomorrow night's knockout semi-final in Brisbane. The Dogs were able to get permission for a light training session at the Gabba this afternoon, but it's the only time they'll be allowed out of their hotel until game time tomorrow. Luke Beveridge is keeping his faith in the same lineup that beat the Bombers last weekend. He's opted not to bring Jamara Ugle-Hagan into their forward line. Meantime, the Lions are without Dan McStay due to concussion protocols and perhaps playing a few mind games with who could lead forward to replace him.
It's been our topic of conversation all week, Do we go small? Do we move Marcus Adams out of the back line? And even another left field one is Harris Andrews has played as a forward as a junior. And he can mark the ball, so, there's options there. And I guess
Chris Fagan there, not willing to give anything away that could give the Dogs an edge heading into the game. Or Macca, he simply hasn't made his mind up yet either.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Laura Spurway there. For the first time in 18 years, 2 Aussie women have made it through to the 3rd round at the US Open. World number 1 Ash Barty will take on American Shelby Rogers for a spot in the round of 16 after a straight sets win today.
If you can describe your 2021 season so far in the most Aussie way possible.
Bloody good.
What was that?
Bloody good.
Bloody good. There you go.
Absolutely bloody good. Tomljanovic joins Barty in the 3rd round for the first time in New York, while Novak Djokovic claimed his 23rd straight Grand Slam victory this year. The Socceroos have kicked off their final round of World Cup qualifiers in style. 2 goals in the space of 2 minutes set up a first half lead against China. The Aussies went on to claim a 3-0 win. And with a $20 million winner's cheque up for grabs, 4-time major winner Brooks Koepka had some help from above in the opening round of the PGA Tour Championship.
with a butterfly chasing in. Go get it, butterfly. Yeah!
Victor Hovland completed an incredible recovery from the trees to hole out for eagle, but the shot of the day went to American Harris English, who aced the par 3 15th. Aussie Cam Smith is 6 shots back in a tie for 5th. Jackie, that is all for sport. How are you feeling ahead of tonight? The Cats and the Giants?
Very nervous, but I think we'll get the job done.
Okay, yes, you better for all Cats' sake. Yes, I think you'll be in good touch as well. But live coverage, of course, at 6 o'clock tonight.
We'll see you then. Thanks, Magga. There's been an emotional reunion in Brisbane as a 3-year-old boy was finally reunited with his parents after being separated by a border battle. Samantha Heathwood was there for the emotional homecoming.
He's the little boy who's captured the nation's heart, and today at Archerfield Airport, little Memphis was finally back in his mother's arms. It was a mighty mission, the 3-year-old leaving his grandparents' cattle station near Griffith this morning, homeward bound on an Angel flight plane.
He's been up since 3. He knows something's going on.
He went to visit them on July 9, and when Queensland's border slammed shut with just 12 hours' notice, there wasn't enough time to make the 14-hour trip interstate. His mum tried to get an exemption but was knocked back until yesterday.
I sort of don't want to start crying. I suppose that's the Italian in me. I want to just kiss everyone and say thank you.
He was reunited with his mum in Brisbane at 2 o'clock this afternoon before boarding her flight back to Hervey Bay and onward to their home in Howard. But his family says while they've been lucky to finally receive their exemption, many others haven't.
This is not only about Memphis. This is about everyone that is having this problem.
When Memphis arrives home to his family's 40-acre farm, he won't be leaving anytime soon. They're under strict Queensland health orders and will have to isolate for 2 weeks.
There are 208 new cases today and authorities are bracing for even higher numbers. There's new hope of what life will look like in a few months' time. Up next, details on what restrictions could ease for those who are fully vaccinated. Plus, new rules as playgrounds reopen. Record cases and a spike in deaths as Sydney's Delta battle worsens. And a major search and rescue mission in New York after a deadly downpour. We're back in just a few minutes.
Live from Melbourne, this is 7's Afternoon News with Jacqueline Philgate.
Welcome back. Victoria's COVID crisis is worsening with 208 new cases today. More than half of those are mysteries, and a man in his 60s from Altona North has died from the virus. But there is some hope. Australia has secured an extra 4 million Pfizer doses through a vaccine swap with the UK. Just over 1 million doses will be sent to Victoria. And the Premier has confirmed double vaccinated Victorians will have greater freedom once we hit vaccine targets.
At 70 and more likely at 80% double dose, we will have opportunities to open up parts of the Victorian economy to those who have been vaccinated. Put it another way, when we get to those vaccination double dose thresholds as part of the national plan, the notion of a lockdown of the whole community is far less relevant. But what will, I think, become a bigger part of our response is a lock-out of many, many venues for those who are not vaccinated. Now, that might seem a bit harsh, but I've said this before and I'll make the point again, that I'm not going to lock the whole state down to protect people who won't protect themselves.
For more, we're joined by Professor Adrian Esterman, epidemiologist from the University of South Australia. Thanks as always for your time, Professor. There are obviously 208 cases today. Have we, in your opinion, lost control of the outbreak now?
I'm not sure that lost control is the correct word. I mean, the numbers aren't still so large that your contact tracers can't manage it, but they soon will be so. More importantly, we're seeing an acceleration of cases, which is the last thing we want.
When you talk about an acceleration of cases, do you think Victoria is perhaps in a worse position than New South Wales was at the same time of their outbreak?
Yes, very much so. So at this stage, they had a much lower effective reproduction number. So if you look at the curves of the two epidemics, the Victorian curve is now much steeper than New South Wales was at this point in time.
And why do you think that is?
Look, it's very difficult to say. Theoretically speaking, the current Victorian restrictions should have brought this under control. It's done so in many other states and territories, including Northern Territory, South Australia, Queensland. As to why it hasn't worked in Victoria, As I said, it's very difficult to say. It could well be that it could well be the result of the protest marches, which were 2 weeks ago, and it's now coming into fruition. But I mean, we can't prove that. It could be that people are fed up with lockdowns and not complying as much. But again, we don't have any evidence for this, but that's my own sort of gut feeling.
On another matter, you've sort of outlined a rather dire situation at the moment, but do you think we could ease any restrictions, particularly those outdoors, to give people some relief?
Look, the Dietary Institute modelling basically says that, when you get to 70% or 80% of the adult population fully vaccinated, you can start easing restrictions. But they're not calling for Freedom Day like they had in the UK. They're arguing for a very, very carefully calibrated relaxation of restrictions, because some things you can do would hardly make any difference. So, for example, when we say you mustn't travel more than 5 kilometres, would it really make a difference if it was 10 kilometres? What's the evidence for 5 kilometres? The answer is not much. So they can look at every one, the Victorian government can look at every one of the current restrictions and sort of rank them as to which is the ones they can actually relax with the least chance of it increasing infection numbers.
And are you also concerned about the number of people presenting to hospital and ending up in ICU? What does that show about the nature of the outbreak, or perhaps how people are dealing with a COVID infection?
What we're seeing is the same thing has been seen in the UK and the USA, that it's a much younger group of people now getting infected and ending up in hospital and ending up in ICU. And this is because a good proportion of elderly people have been fully vaccinated. Usually, the younger you are, the less severe the disease is. But the trouble is, with enough young people and children not vaccinated yet, we are seeing more and more of them going into hospital and getting seriously ill and going into ICU.
Adrian Esterman, thank you so much, as always, for your thoughts this afternoon. We do appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Playgrounds have finally reopened across the city this morning. But as Tegan Dolling reports, parents and children must abide by strict COVID-safe protocols.
There have been a lot of happy faces at playgrounds around Melbourne today, not just the little kids, but the big kids too. They have reopened after being closed down last month. Here at the newly refurbished playground in Carlton, the Lord Mayor came down to make sure it was all in order and ready for the children to enjoy.
I had fun on the swings and fun on the slide.
What's your favourite part of the playground, do you reckon?
The slide.
And why the slide?
It's really tall and you... Ultra excited, amazing.
There are new rules around playground use. They're only open for children under the age of 12. Only one carer can attend, and adults are not allowed to remove their masks to eat or drink. QR codes will also be put up for carers to check in.
I think that's fair to keep the community safe. And I think we're just happy to be back. We're really encouraging people to do the right thing, because if we do that, then we can keep our playgrounds open.
Health advisors had suspicions that COVID transmission was potentially occurring in playgrounds. And the Chief Health Officer insists if there is more evidence of this occurring, he won't rule out shutting playgrounds down again.
A New Zealand terrorist has been killed by police after he stabbed 6 shoppers at an Auckland supermarket around 2 p.m. today. Reports say he entered the building with a knife, leaving 3 people in a critical condition. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has said he was a lone wolf who had links to ISIS.
This was someone who was known to our national security agencies and was of concern, and therefore was being monitored constantly.
The man is a Sri Lankan national who moved to New Zealand in 2011. He was placed on a terror watch list in 2016. New South Wales set another grim COVID record, 1,431 new infections and 12 deaths. But Premier Gladys Berejiklian warns the state hasn't seen the peak of this outbreak just yet. Amber Laidler has more.
Good afternoon. Yes, a shocking day here in New South Wales. Included in the 12 deaths are men and women aged in their 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s. There is also a woman aged in her 30s who died on September 1st. Health officials say that case is now under investigation. Despite this record day, the Premier is warning the worst is yet to come. And while ICU admissions will be at their highest during October, she's expecting our case numbers to peak in the next fortnight.
So the next fortnight is likely to be our worst in terms of the number of cases. But as I've said, it's not the number of cases we need to be focusing on, but how many of those cases end up in our intensive care wards and hospitals, and how many people we have vaccinated as quickly as possible.
Of the 160 patients currently being treated in ICU with COVID-19, we're told 127 of those are unvaccinated. But nationally, our vaccine rollout received a boost overnight. 500,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine touched down in Sydney from Singapore overnight. They will now be distributed across the country, and they do form part of that vaccine swap deal we made with Singapore. So while we receive those doses now, we will need to send 500,000 doses back to Singapore later this year. More than 7.2 million doses of the vaccine have now been administered in New South Wales, so residents of those 12 council areas of concern are enjoying a slight relaxation of their restrictions today. Their 1 hour exercise limit has been scrapped. They can now exercise outdoors for an unlimited amount of time between the curfew hours of 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Small weddings are now also permitted across the state.
A major search and rescue operation is underway in New York and surrounding states after a flooding disaster. The death toll stands at 45, with entire communities underwater in the catastrophic aftermath of Hurricane Ida. David Woywood reports.
Good afternoon. Yes, this was an incredibly intense yet short-lived storm. Those rescues have been happening throughout the day. Still plenty of people stranded inside their homes, others left with absolutely nothing. Everyone, though, shocked at the ferocity of this freak weather event. It took just minutes for what was left of Hurricane Ida to shut down one of the biggest cities in the world. Remnants of the tropical storm causing mass destruction across New York, New Jersey and Pennsylvania. But it wasn't just rising water residents were contending with. In New Jersey, this house caught fire, cut off from any help, while elsewhere there was only one way out, as rescue boats took to the fast-moving waters, door to door, pulling people to safety.
In their boat, a number of firefighters got pinned up against a bridge pier by moving water and ended up having to be rescued themselves.
Cars are stuck and we have bodies underwater. We are now retrieving bodies.
A 2-year-old boy among the dead, trapped in a basement as buildings filled with water. New York and New Jersey officially declared a flash flooding emergency for the first time ever, just months after being forced to stay home due to the COVID outbreak. Residents once again told to remain inside as a major cleanup begins. Hundreds of thousands of people still without power and clean water, and it's likely to remain like that for some time.
Up next, a man stabbed at a McDonald's in Melbourne's north. Plus, what sparked a fire emergency in Melbourne's southeast. And triumph in Tokyo for an Australian war veteran. We're back soon, right here on 7. A home in Melbourne's southeast has been destroyed in a ferocious blaze overnight. Residents watched on as the flames and explosions tore through the Hampton Park property around midnight.
Holy man, that's pretty bad.
It took almost a dozen crews half an hour to bring it under control. The homeowner was able to escape moments before the blaze broke out. A man is fighting for life following a violent attack at a McDonald's in Essendon. Police say the 27-year-old was stabbed by 2 people before the pair fled on foot with the victim's food. It happened around 8 last night. A 16-year-old has been arrested as the second person is still on the run. A new prostate cancer campaign is targeting young people, encouraging them to prompt their dads, grandfathers and uncles to get checked. For more now, we're joined by Ted Whitten Jr. from charity Rule Prostate Cancer. Thanks so much for your time, Ted. This is obviously a very personal campaign for you.
Yeah, it is, Jackie. It's certainly from my family's point of view, the opportunity to continue the use of Dad's name in a prostate cancer organisation called Rule Prostate Cancer is certainly an exciting opportunity, and hopefully out of it all we can save more and more lives.
Why is it so important, perhaps, with this one to target children and grandchildren rather than men themselves?
Well, as we all know, grown men are traditionally reluctant to go to the doctor for anything, including prostate cancer checkups. And our research tells us that the younger generation takes more notice of campaigns and ads like prostate cancer awareness. So we think it's a great opportunity for us to push the message out to the younger generation to get them to protect their legends, their grandfathers, their brothers, their uncles, and their fathers, to be able to make sure that they're around for a long time. And hey, go and get a checkup. Why not go and get a checkup once a year? Because prostate cancer is a silent killer, and we need to have our men around for a long time in the families.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And you've got some high-profile support behind the campaign as well.
We do. We have a number of ambassadors supporting the campaign, including Joe Silvani, who was up the front this morning in promotion of the new campaign launch. So we're delighted to have Joe involved and her family. It's just terrific. And out of it all, that younger generation hopefully can take notice and get their dads and their brothers and their grandfathers to go and get a checkup.
And what's your message to men, particularly older men who are perhaps a little bit hesitant to take that first step and go and get a checkup?
Well, the message is, like I lost my father at 62 years of age, and if he had known what is known now about prostate cancer and the fact that it is curable if detected early, he could be still with us today. So don't think that prostate cancer may not get you. There's always a chance. So it only takes a 10-second blood test once a year to keep on top of it, to make sure that you're around with your families for a long time, because it's a disease that is a silent killer.
Oh, such a powerful message. Ted Whitten Jr., thank you so much for having a chat to us this afternoon, and best of luck with the campaign.
Thank you.
An Australian war veteran who lost both his legs in Afghanistan has triumphed in Tokyo, winning back-to-back Paralympic gold medals. Matt Carmichael has more.
The rain continues to fall here in Tokyo, but it has also been raining gold for Australia over the past 24 hours. The latest from Curtis McGrath, adding to the legendary story of his life. The Army engineer wounded in Afghanistan, he quipped to the mates trying to save his life, "Don't worry, fellas, now I can become a Paralympian." Well, he hasn't just done that. Kurt has now gone back-to-back with gold medals in the canoe sprint kayak, and he was sensational here today.
Yeah, very happy with the result there. Had a really good race. Congrats to the other competitors out there. We all pushed really hard, and there can only be one winner, and that's myself. So I'm very stoked with that effort.
Susan Siepel was also great today, winning a silver medal. At the Fuji International Speedway, it was an absolute heartbreaker for Al Donahoe. Another rider crashed, and that brought Al down. He crashed for a second time, bravely battled on. Of course, he was a silver medalist from Rio, desperate to atone for a crash that cost him gold there. So a heartbreaker for him. But for Paige Greco, another bronze medal, continuing this sensational games from our cyclists. Overnight, it was absolutely pouring with gold medals at the swimming pool. 3 golds for Australia. Also, Ellie Cole with a bronze in the relay became our most decorated female Paralympian of all time. And here at the track, Vanessa Lowe switched from Germany because she married our sprinting champion Scott Reardon. And the long jump for Australia went back-to-back with a gold medal in one of the great nights of the Games here so far.
Coming up, a new probe into a home birth tragedy in Melbourne's northeast. And after nearly 40 years, a major announcement from ABBA. We're back soon, right here on 7.
Know the headlines as they break. Know the stories as they happen. With 7news.com.au, know the news now.
A committal hearing continues into why a mother died during a home birth in Melbourne's northeast. As Sarah Jones reports, the 36-year-old went into cardiac arrest and died in hospital 12 hours later.
Caroline Lovell chose to give birth to her second daughter in a pool of water at her Watsonia home, under the care of midwife Gage Emmanuel and assistant Melody Byrne. Almost a decade on, the pair's being investigated for negligent manslaughter. Miss Lovell remained in the pool for an hour after her baby girl was born in January 2012, unaware she was bleeding to death. The 36-year-old started to deteriorate. She was hyperventilating and lost consciousness. They were caring for her and trying to ascertain what was going on for her. The new mother had sustained tears during the birth and began hemorrhaging, succumbing to her injuries at the Austin Hospital 12 hours later. After Caroline died, it was very traumatic. Caroline's mother-in-law told the hearing the family received total and utter support from the midwives in the weeks following the sudden death, and they continue daily checks on the newborn baby. The committal hearing is set to continue next week to determine if the midwives should stand trial.
A popular apple juice sold at Coles is being recalled over contamination fears. The original juice, Co's Black Label Cloudy Apple Juice, expiring on the 7th of October this year, may have been contaminated with a harmful toxin. Food Standards Australia says the microbe could cause illness if consumed, and people should return the product for a full refund. Prince Harry has spoken out about what he calls mass-scale misinformation across media platforms, saying it's causing vaccine hesitancy. The comments came as he presented the creators of the AstraZeneca vaccine with GQ's Heroes of the Year award in London.
This is a system we need to break if we are to overcome COVID-19 and the risk of new variants. The Oxford team have done their part. They are heroes of the highest order.
Piers Morgan was spotted in the audience just hours after being vindicated for calling Harry's wife a liar. Swedish pop sensation ABBA has confirmed they're back after nearly 40 years. They've released new songs and revealed they'll have a new studio album out in November. Sarah Greenold reports.
Well, millions of fans right around the world are right now saying thank you for the music, ABBA, the new music, with the Swedish supergroup making a lot of people very happy, announcing that they are releasing a new album featuring 10 brand new tracks. The first two singles have already premiered. They were played during a special live stream event.
I still have faith in you.
Fans around the world have been waiting for decades, and today ABBA delivered.
Yes, ABBA are back together officially.
The first song of their new studio album.
I knew when Benny played the melody, I just knew it had to be about us. It's inconceivable to be where we are, to release a new album after 40 years and still be the best of friends.
The group's first concert since 1982 will be held in London in a custom-built arena. At least 500 digital artists were brought on board with one vision: to bring fans the same ABBA we fell in love with in their prime. The band, however, won't be there in the flesh. The members of ABBA are now aged in their 70s, so instead, thanks to some pretty remarkable motion capture technology, digital versions of the singers from when they were in their prime in the 70s will be beamed onto the stage. The album is being released on the 5th of November.
Amazing. Let's take a quick look now at Melbourne's roads.
G'day there, Andy Stewart in the Space Talk Traffic Centre. Goes without saying, wet and slippery. Quite woolly out there, so just be mindful and take care. Turn those lights on. With that in mind, we do have some flooding for West Melbourne. Dudley Street closed at Wurundjeri Way under the rail overpass there. Use Dining Road instead. Say big with Space Talk's takeoff sale, and score big on features like 4G phone and GPS locator in a kid's smartwatch. They're on sale now at spacetalkwatch.com. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
It's set to be a very good weekend for Southern Cassowary Princess, who's celebrating his 20th birthday in Sydney. To mark the big occasion, he's tucked into a cake with all his favourite treats: watermelon, grapes and cherry tomatoes. Despite his royal title, Princess is a male. Zookeepers say they picked the name because he's high maintenance. Love that. Time now for an update with someone who's not high maintenance, Melina Saris. Hello, Mel. It's looking pretty gloomy out there this afternoon.
Gloomy, windy and wet, Jackie. After a warm and sunny morning, the rain has set in. So far, the city has had 9 millimetres. Before the wet weather arrived, we broke some overnight heat records. The city's low of 20.1 degrees was the second warmest September night on record. We reached a top of 23 early on, and that was the end of the heat. Outside now, it is 12 in Geelong, 13 at Mount Dandenong, 14 at Moorabbin. This rain arrived around midday, and so far it has delivered 12 millimetres to Avalon, 11 in Viewbank and Frankston. These showers will continue this evening with the chance of a thunderstorm as well. Around Victoria, the The heaviest falls so far are in Ballarat and Stawell with 17 millimetres, and we've had a significant drop in temperatures. There is a severe weather warning for damaging winds mainly across the eastern ranges and the Alpine peaks. These conditions are due to a cold front moving across the state today. This front will clear to the east on Saturday morning, while a low forms to our east as well. In Victoria tomorrow, scattered showers will continue about the southern and mountain areas. Heavy falls are possible about the eastern ranges, and there's a chance of a thunderstorm in the west in the afternoon with small hail. In the city tomorrow, a few showers, around 8 millimetres is forecast, a low of 9 overnight before a top of 15 degrees. It'll be a cool and showery weekend. I'll have the full forecast at 6 o'clock, Jack.
Very different to yesterday. Mel, what's it like out there at the moment?
It's cold and wet, and it's actually blowing in sideways, and this is what it's going to be like tomorrow, and we will have a few more showers on Sunday as well, with temperatures in the mid-teens, but I can assure you we will return to the 20s by the middle of the week, so there's a bit of sunshine to look forward to, Jack.
Hopefully the kids can enjoy some time in the playground then. All right, we'll see you at 6. Thank you, Melina. And that is all from the 7 Newsroom for now. Mike Amor is here at 6. For now, though, from the 7 News team, have a great weekend. Take care.